Alright, this week I'm actually going to talk about getting yearly physical and doing blood work. Now, ultimately, the way you want to do it is you get to the point where that's pretty much all you do is pretty much your blood work for your yearly physical. Now, obviously, there are going to be some people that like me, maybe you're diabetic. That's kind of like a common issue. So maybe you're type 1 diabetic, so you're going to need more than just the yearly physical. I'm going to come at it that, but of course, saying that unless you have something condition like that, most people what you want to do is you want to work towards that. So now, in my example, for instance, getting drunk all the time, I was eating like shit and everything. If I were have done like a yearly physical back then, of course, being a complete living a complete and utter unhealthy lifestyle, chances are I wouldn't have done a yearly physical. Like, oh yeah, I would have just been like, yeah, I'm totally fine. What the fuck are you talking about? I would just brush you off and everything. Now, pretty much like a decade, about a decade later or so, I'm like, hey, look, I'm actually in like I've done a complete 180, and I'm now at the point where I'm one of those people that pretty much only need a yearly physical and blood work and everything. So earlier this week, I did get my blood work. Now, I did get the results today's Saturday, so I did get my blood results like yesterday or the day before. So it was relatively quick. I went in on on a Wednesday, and then did the or it was Tuesday, and then like by Wednesday I got my blood test results back and everything. So it was like within a day. So I'm like, oh, that's pretty quick and everything. So now I was able to look at some of the numbers and everything, and so I was actually kind of looking at some of the stuff, and like some of the stuff was out of range and everything. So I'm like, huh, that, that's kind of interesting. So now, of course, me not being like a medical physician or like anyone in the medical field and everything, my interpretations of it are going to be kind of well, completely different than someone who has a background in medicine. So they, with having the blood work and now of course as of this recording, my physical is going to be within a few weeks and everything. So what's great is that I will be able to, hey, look, these numbers, I can sit here and I was looking at the stuff and everything, and okay, this is some of this stuff is out of range and everything. So I know some of the stuff makes sense though. Well, one of the things that was a little high or whatever, and I was like, oh, okay, one of the causes could be that I was kind of dehydration or whatever, and that kind of makes sense and everything because I kind of went in a little dehydrated. So yeah, that's probably why that level is out of range and everything. So there was another one with the blood white blood cell count or whatever, and it's okay, well, I've been trying to shake this sinus thing and everything the past few days. So going in, it's yeah, okay, that's probably that right there and everything. So but what really what I found interesting is pretty much in the normal range of stuff. My calcium was pretty much right on the spot of the low end. So I'm like, huh. So how I would interpret that number for me is that I'm probably not intaking enough calcium. I mean, it's still within the good range and everything. It's just exactly at the low limit and everything. So I'm kind of so this is where you tracking stuff with the 2000. Still coming over that sinus stuff and everything. So anyway, uh, the calcium, I was kind of looking at the low end. So I'm thinking okay, so I can see my how I go about my daily habits and everything. I'm lifting at least 4 days a week and everything. So and yeah, I do eat and drink a lot of dairy and everything. So I've kind of backed off drinking milk several days before and everything. So that could be why it's a little lower. So I do eat a lot of yogurt and stuff like that. So I'm looking at okay, so I need to quite possibly up my calcium because maybe all the lifting that I do at least 4 days a week is that I need that little extra calcium. So that's how I'm going to interpret it. But I'm of course going into the physical, which is in a few weeks as of this recording. I'm going to be like, hey, look, these are the numbers, like, and like I can ask questions, be like, all right, this is what I'm doing, and these are what I'm normally eating. This is how I'm shifting it. And I can work with my my primary care physician, be like, okay, and they can be like, oh, hey, okay, here you got a good idea on how to do this, and they could give me even better insights on how to do stuff and everything. So now that was that, and my sodium intake was like pretty much the same thing, kind of like at the pretty much like right at the edge of the low end of the healthy range. So I'm like, okay, so maybe I need to start upping like my salt intake and everything. That kind of that makes sense too, because like not only lifting 4 days a week, I'm also doing a couple days of cardio, so I'm sweating a little more. So I'm like, okay, well that makes sense. So I'm gonna have to up that and everything. So this is all the video to kind of give you an idea of like when you're looking at the numbers, like if you get your blood test before you go into your physical, it's not to sit there and be like, oh my god, all this is take a look at it and like, okay, well, like for instance, like what I was talking about, like my blood count may be a little higher, like out of range, and like, okay, well, like I said, I'm kind of like was kind of shaking off like the sinus cold or something or whatever. So I was like, okay, that could be it, and of course like calcium levels I mentioned like a little low. Okay, so I look at my habits. Like I said, I'm lifting at least 4 days a week. Okay, I need to quite pot like that numbers suggest that I should probably start up in my calcium intake. The same thing like I mentioned with sodium, I'm probably sweating a lot more, so I'm probably gonna have to up my sodium intake some, and like so that's what like the great thing about these numbers is it gives you data that you can sit there and look at, like, okay, well, here's what this is saying, here's what I can go about, and like how I can change things. Now the biggest drawback to like a blood test is it's just pretty much like it's the only drawback is that it's a snapshot. So like I go in a Wednesday morning or a Tuesday morning, it's just like, okay, that's like pretty much a snapshot of like a Tuesday morning and everything. So like and of course several days later, now after getting the numbers back and everything, I can look at it and like, well, a good 3 or 4 days have passed and everything. So like things are actually are obviously going to fluctuate, because okay, that was Tuesday, I went about my day and going about and getting this done, I went there and did that, and okay, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, okay, I'm working, I'm doing this, I'm kind of like getting here, I'm doing that, and like then I go to the gym and do this, and so things are going to be in flux between then and like now. So it's a drawback in the sense that it's just you just taking your camera and doing like a snapshot, like, oh, like a single moment in time and everything. So that's the one and only drawback of like doing blood work, is it only gives you like walking in on a Tuesday morning. Okay, so like this is numbers for Tuesday morning, but like the great thing though is that you can take that snapshot and be like, okay, so here's the numbers. Now I got a shit ton of data points, and like I said, like what I'm going to be going in when I go into my physical yearly physical, I want to explain everything. Like, okay, well, like I've already mentioned like a couple times, so like okay, I'm kind of like it was like dealing with like a tail end of like a sinus cold or something. It was one of those things that was just kind of lingering. Okay, so like calcium intake is a little low because I'm my amount of lifting I'm doing, I'm starting to up, and I've been upping stuff too, and so I'm going a little more intense in my lifting. So that kind of could explain that, and so like and then like the same thing like the sodium intake, and like okay, like some of the stuff I was looking at, like total protein was pretty much like a dead center, like the protein levels and everything, like what they did with uh, the the whole blood work or whatever. So it was pretty much a dead center. So like it was pretty much right in the middle of the healthy range and everything. So I'm like thinking like, wow, if it's like so this got me thinking like with that, it's like kind of like I'm averaging probably like I want to say like 190 grams of protein a day and everything. So I don't track everything like meticulously or whatever, but I do have a good general idea. So like I usually intake at least 180 grams. So I say I average like 190. So I'm taking anywhere from at least 180 to probably about 210, 215 grams of protein a day and everything. So that's why I say I average about 190. So I'm like, well, okay, so this high protein diet with what I'm doing physically and everything, okay, that seems to be working, so I'm not going to change that and everything. So I think I've got that figured out. And so like and like there's another like one like the TSH level that was like a slightly up and everything. Like the high end was like 4.2 and mine was like a 4.27. So I'm like, okay, well, like I can maybe get my primary when I do meet with them in a few weeks. It'll be like, okay, this was slightly higher, and like I can sit here and ask questions, like intelligent questions, like, okay, well, here's what I'm doing. This is what like this is what was going on. This is what I'm doing. This is what I've been doing. This is what I've been like adjusting and everything. Because how this is how I interpreted the numbers. So I'm going to be like, well, you're the, in a sense, the medical expert. Like, am I completely off based on my interpretation? And or like is I'm kind of right, where am I right, where am I wrong? So this is why having the yearly physicals and doing this blood work and everything is that by having those daily, weekly, and monthly healthy habits that you're doing every single day, you can sit there and be like, okay, how do I make adjustments, instead of sitting there having like that knee-jerk reaction, like my blood test is all over the fucking place. And you have like you just you can in a sense take a step back and look at it and be like, okay, so let's start looking at things like I said, like for me, calcium, sodium, a little low. Okay, so I make those adjustments instead of like, oh my god, it's lower. I still like, okay, a little low. I make these adjustments and everything with what I'm doing. I continue doing what I'm doing with like doing lifting for strength and skeletal muscular strength, and doing like a cardio for the cardiovascular health, and okay, so doing stuff like yoga and stretching and everything for mobility. Okay, so that's good. Like I said, with the protein, it seems to be like a dead center in the healthy range or whatever. That I don't really need to. Seems like I don't really need to change that. So that's what you do, is you take this snapshot, and when you go into your physical and everything, and you like work with your primary care back and forth, and be like, okay, how do we make these adjustments to kind of like over the course of this next year? So that way, when I come in next year, we can kind of like take that next snapshot and kind of look at like okay, so over the course of the year, we've made these adjustments and everything. Things have kind of like gotten back to like normal. Okay, let's keep doing this, or like maybe we have to like some things may have like gone from like maybe a high range, like slightly on the high end out of range, to maybe slightly low. Okay, so now we need to like come back more this way and everything. So you're making those like adjustments and everything. So that's the idea of like a yearly physical with like the blood work and everything. Now, yeah, I'm going to want to say that you're going to want to work to get to the point where I'm at, where all I really need is like with the dealing with like the sinuses and stuff, is taking like over the counter stuff, like cough drops and like a Vicks vapor rub, stuff like that you can buy like pretty much like anywhere, like a Walmart, Dollar General, or any retail store. So using like pretty much like over the counter stuff for any like minor illnesses that you get and everything. Now, of course, if you do have a condition, like I mentioned, like a type 1 diabetes or something, if you have a condition like that, then of course you're going to have to like take what I'm saying, like, okay, well, and adjust, like, okay, well, I have this condition, so this is what he's saying, so I have to kind of maybe take what I'm saying and like get with my primary. I have this, so I have to get with my primary care and kind of adjust things accordingly. So the idea of this video is taking your blood work and going into your yearly physical, working with your primary care, and then making those adjustments to whatever your situation might be and everything, to get in a sense get that much better and everything. So like this is pretty much like a long-winded, hey, get your do your blood work, get your yearly physical, do your checkups and stuff like that, in conjunction with all the other stuff I talked about, like lifting, like healthy eating, mobility, like cardiovascular stuff and everything. So this is just another, in a sense, add-on to help add weight to like, oh hey, here's help bring kind of give that big overall picture of how you want to go about living that healthy lifestyle.